Welcome to Legal Video Resource. I'm Jason Wheathalter, and today we're looking at 3 microphone pickup patterns every legal videographer should be aware of. So let's discuss microphone pickup patterns, and in particular, 3 pickup patterns that every legal videographer should be aware of. To help me illustrate this, I'm going to pull out a microphone here, put it in front of me. Now this is a Audio-Technica 2005 USB, and it's a microphone that can record or have outputs of both USB and XLR. So this is kind of a nice microphone if you want to connect it to your computer, to do voiceovers, or have a conference call, something like that. It's a really nice microphone. It's handheld, so it's not something you would typically see in a deposition video, but it's a good way to just illustrate this point because it's what everybody's probably used to seeing when it comes to a microphone, something you just grab with your hand and hold up to your mouth. This is a pretty standard microphone, so it'll help me kind of explain it. Now this microphone is cardioid. That's the pickup pattern. It's cardioid. And cardioid is kind of in the middle. It's the second pickup pattern we're going to be talking about, but it'll really help me to illustrate the 3 different types and how they work together. So the first type of pickup pattern every legal videographer should be aware of is the omnidirectional pickup pattern. What is omnidirectional? Well, omnidirectional means, just like it sounds, it records omni from everywhere. Every direction is how that type of mic picks up sound. So what that means for a microphone like this is if it were omnidirectional, it means that if I talk directly into the mic, the way it's pointed, that it'll hear me just as clearly as if I talked to the back of the mic. Now again, this is a cardioid microphone, so this one is not going to be omnidirectional, but that's what an omnidirectional would be, is if I talk into it like normal, from any side of this microphone, any direction into this microphone, it's going to sound the same on an omnidirectional microphone. The second pickup pattern is a cardioid, and that's what this microphone is. And essentially what that cardioid pickup pattern does is it cuts this omnidirectional pickup pattern in half. Now it's not perfectly in half, but it kind of shapes the sound. So now this microphone only really picks up from the front half. And that's a really common pickup pattern for microphones like this that are handheld, is this cardioid pickup pattern. I mean, it doesn't really make sense that you could talk into the back of this microphone with this handle back here. So it's not omnidirectional, it's cardioid. So where an omnidirectional microphone would kind of pick up this sphere of sound, the cardioid microphone kind of cuts that in half and just picks up sound from the front half of the microphone, not necessarily the back half. Now it's not perfect, and really what's happening whenever you hear sound that gets into a cardioid microphone when it's not pointed in exactly the right direction is you're hearing reflections. You're getting reflections off of a table or some other wall or something that's reflecting back into the top of the microphone. So let me give you an example of what cardioid versus omnidirectional would sound like with this microphone. Again, if it were an omni, I could talk into it this way. I could talk into it from the back. It would all sound exactly the same. Now, since it's a cardioid microphone, it's going to have some rejection of the sound behind it and then also a little bit to the side because it is shaped a little bit more than an omnidirectional. So if I talk to it from the front, it sounds pretty good. If I spin it all the way around, away from me, now you can't really hear me all that well because it's pointed away from me. Because now it's basically getting reflections off the table back into the microphone. You can also hear some of that rejection. If I move it here to the side, you can hear I'm a little bit clearer, but you still don't hear me as clearly as if this was pointed right at me. And that's kind of how a cardioid microphone works. So now I'm talking directly to the side of it as opposed to directly into it or from directly behind it. Back around. Okay. So now I'm talking basically directly into it again, and you should be able to hear me very clearly. That's the idea behind a cardioid microphone versus an omnidirectional microphone. Now what about the other pickup patterns? Well, I said 3, and really this last one, it's kind of 2 in 1, hypercardioid and supercardioid. So what's different between those compared to a cardioid microphone? Well, as the names might suggest, they're more directional than even this cardioid microphone is. So hypercardioid and supercardioid don't just, cut off the back half of the sphere of an omnidirectional microphone and just kind of pick up from the front. They actually take this pickup and shape it even further. So now it rejects even more sound off from each side. So it's shaped even further. And a lot of times, hypercardioid and supercardioid microphones you will find in shotgun style microphones, what we would call a shotgun type microphone, a long tube like mic. Those are typically hypercardioid or supercardioid. Some of them are even what's called low bar. But a lot of them are hypercardioid and supercardioid. And what they do is they block a lot of sound from the side and focus it in towards the front. Now, one of the downsides, if you will, of hypercardioid or supercardioid microphones is because this picker pattern is essentially squeezing in and rejecting more sound off to the sides, but kind of even more directionally shaping the pickup of the microphone. It also creates this little tail on the back of the microphone where it picks up sound from directly behind it. So while it might reject a lot of sound off to the sides and focus the sound in, it still picks up some sound from directly behind the microphone. And that's just the nature of the physics of the pickup patterns. So omnidirectional picks up from everywhere. Cardioid kind of cuts that in half and just picks up from the front, squeezes in a little bit, but picks up from the front of the microphone. And then hypercardioid squeezes in even further, and so does supercardioid. And then also the hyper and supercardioid kind of create this tail pickup behind the microphone wherever it's pointed. And so this will change the way that microphones respond to sound in the room. So how does this apply to deposition video? Well, a lot of times when you're talking about a lavalier style microphone or a boundary style microphone, those can be omnidirectional or cardioid. And in that case, they make a big difference in terms of how you use them in a deposition. An omnidirectional, if you have an omnidirectional lavalier microphone, it doesn't matter if you have that microphone pointed up, it doesn't matter if the microphone's pointed down, it'll pick up sound basically from all around the microphone. Yeah, it might be slightly more clear if the microphone's pointed up at a person talking to it versus down and away from a person talking to it, but it's basically going to pick up sound the same all the way around. Now, if that same lavalier microphone is cardioid and you have it placed pointed up towards the person speaking, then it's going to pick up that person speaking and it's going to reject a lot of the rest of the sound coming from the room. If you have it pointed down, then suddenly it's going to try to reject what it's hearing from the person talking into it and kind of pick up the bounce back off of the table or the reflection back off of the table or a wall or something else. So placement is really important when it comes to omni versus cardioid. And when you're dealing with, attorneys and witnesses that maybe aren't used to working with microphones, they're not professionals in front of a camera, they don't know the difference between omnidirectional and cardioid. You do, but they don't. And so omnidirectional might be the safer bet for situations in which you're working with somebody on camera or somebody speaking into a microphone that doesn't really know the technology. And that's okay, they don't know the technology. That's not their job. That's your job. So omnidirectional is kind of the universal microphone. It's really easy to use. Now, the downside to an omnidirectional microphone is it picks up from everywhere. So if you have a really quiet, like soft speaker on one side of the table and a really loud speaker on the other side of the table, the omnidirectional microphone on the soft speaker will probably pick up a lot of the sound coming from the loudspeaker. Whoever the attorney is, or maybe a translator or somebody else in the room that's used to speaking on video, maybe they project better. And so the witness who might be a little bit soft-spoken or just a little nervous, the audio might not get picked up, their audio might not get picked up nearly as clearly because you've got that microphone turned up so loud that then everybody else in the room kind of muddies it up. And so that might be a situation in which a cardioid microphone will work really well for a soft-spoken witness because it'll reject the sound from everybody else. That means you can turn it up further and reject the sound from everybody else in the room. The downside, of course, is the directionality. So now you have to make sure that whenever somebody puts on a microphone, it's pointed the correct direction because it's cardioid, not omnidirectional. Boundary microphones or tabletop style microphones kind of work the same way. You can have omnidirectional boundary microphones. But keep in mind, because they're on a table, they're kind of directional just by virtue of the fact that they're on a table. But omnidirectional table microphones pick up 360 degrees around that microphone. Cardioid table microphones kind of point where the sound pickup is coming from towards the front of the microphone. So basically, if you put the microphone down on the table, it's picking up from the table and above, but it's also, if it's cardioid, picking up the front towards the front of the microphone. Whereas if it's omnidirectional, it's kind of picking up around the microphone. This matters on where you place that table microphone if you're using it as a backup microphone. If it's omnidirectional, you kind of want to stick it right in the middle of the table, right in the middle of where everybody is seated. If it's cardioid, you probably want to have it kind of further down the table and pointed towards the witness where everybody is seated. That way it's kind of picking up that pattern. But those two, omnidirectional, cardioid, those are the really common ones for deposition video. Hypercardioid and supercardioid come up, but they come up in other areas of video recording. And you might need them for a very special purpose. Again, hypercardioids and supercardioids are typically shotgun style microphones or shotgun type microphones, boom type microphones. And so those microphones, while not used in deposition video in particular, they might come up in evidentiary video or in some other part of the process where you're using a specialized microphone for a specialized purpose. Maybe you can't have a microphone in the shot for some reason, or maybe as an evidentiary videographer, you're kind of shooting run and gun. And so you're out, with a camera handheld, running from place to place, capturing video, and maybe you need to capture a really quick interview or something, and you don't have time to put a wireless lavalier on the person that you're miking, or maybe you don't have a boom operator. But if you have a shotgun microphone or a boom style microphone, a hypercardioid or supercardioid pickup pattern style microphone, you can stick that right on top of the camera, and as long as your camera is pointed at the speaker, it's going to reject a lot of the sound that maybe you would otherwise capture in a loud machine shop or something like that. But it's going to capture the sound that's directly in front of it. Now keep in mind, it's also going to capture some of the sound that's directly behind it. So if you're the camera operator, make sure you're really quiet, because it's probably going to be able to pick up some of your noise as well as whoever it is that you're actually recording or whoever it is you're pointing that microphone at. So those are three pickup patterns every legal videographer should be aware of: omnidirectional, cardioid, and hyper/supercardioid pickup patterns. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you found this video helpful or interesting, I encourage you, click subscribe down below, because as we post new content to this channel, you'll be the first to know about it. Also, if you have a question or a comment, something else you want to learn about, let us know in the comment section down below. We'll try to answer those there, or maybe in a future video. Again, thanks so much for joining us, and we will see you next time on Legal Video Resource.